Hello and welcome everyone. In this video we'll be doing the second part of our Quickstart tutorial for Inventory COG 1.4, where we're going to be taking a deep dive into the completely reworked UI system. Let's start off by jumping into our Nancy character and looking at the Inventory COGS UI section. So under Pickup we can use Automatic Pickup, and if this is checked, you will automatically pick up any loot item that you walk over, and everything else is suppressed because it won't be needed. Alternatively, you can select a pickup mode, which is either manual, by key, or by button, which changes the options for you based on what you select. In our example, we have a local UI, and we can go ahead and look at that. That's in our main canvas, and we have a pickup action. And this is just a panel with a Text Mesh Pro added to it. And by default, you can see it says ePickup, and we sort of override that here in the set text prompt to true. We supply the text mesh that we're looking at, and we supply the format, which is pickup squiggly brackets 0. And what that gives us is it replaces 0 with the item name. So when we walk over an item, that prompt will pick up for us. And we can just start this real quick and walk into this item right here. And we can see ePickup adhesive. And we do the same sort of thing for containers. We have a container action as well, which is we just duplicated it. So it starts off with ePickup, but then we replace it with open, and then the container name is replaced by bracket 0. For the container, we can also specify menu client to be opened and how we're going to open it, whether it's just going to be activated, spawned from a prefab into the first canvas, or spawned into a selected transform. In this case, it's already in our scene, so we just activate it. And a container menu, when it starts up, will automatically be given both the container and the inventory cog by the inventory cog. So any children that requires those, it's going to find them automatically and populate them, which is why in this example we have it set to manual, and we don't supply either of these items. We do supply the player lists. First we have the scroll view that has your inventory, and then the scroll view that has the container's inventory, and a navigation on how to close it. In this case, we close it with the Q key. So let's take a quick look at how the transfer menu works. So we'll walk up and we'll get our container prompt. You can see that the container action has been activated and updated. We'll press E. And if we look at the transfer menu now, we can see that the player inventory and the container inventory have been automatically populated for us. And as we dive in a little bit more, we can see this scroll view. This is just a normal Unity scroll view that we have attached the item scroll list to. And what the item scroll list does is it just populates a list based on either an inventory cog inventory or an inventory containers inventory. And that's denoted right here in the list source of inventory cog or inventory container. It has an item prefab, and that item is what it repeats for each item in the list. And we'll dive into that in a second. Next, it has a preview object. In this case, for the storage transfer, we don't preview anything. We can also hide that preview if we've selected a null item, which we can do in certain cases, like a grid view. The line height tells us how big each one of those items are, and that's needed for the scroll list to automatically size the content. So if we scroll down to viewport content, this is automatically sized for us by the scroll list view. We can also apply a padding as well, and we can hide the indicator when this isn't active or when the input is locked. So for example, we can switch from our inventory to the container's inventory, and you can see that when we're on our inventory, the selection indicator is no longer active. Category filtering allow this. So these are all brand new systems, and this is something that should really help everyone out. By default, it supplies every category that's available. Or you can do just the categories that are in a list provided or not in a list provided. And this can also be bound too. In this specific instance, we do bind it. We can see this category list up here, which we'll also dive into. And as we move between categories, the item only shows up in armor, which it belongs to, or all items. Next, we can filter by if it requires a breakdown, or I'm sorry, if it can be broken down, or if it can be repaired and its condition is less than 1. We can even filter by things that have custom tags. So we can say, hey, not only does it have to, pardon me, not only does it have to have a tag with this name, but it has to match the value as well that we supply. Or we can simply say, this tag has to exist, or this tag has to not exist for this item to show up. And all this filtering is taken care of automatically for you. Navigation works the same between all of these items. The only difference is between lists and scrolls. Lists only give you an up and down or left and right option, whereas the grid view, allows you both vertical and horizontal. We can select auto wrap. So if this were a multiple item and you got to the bottom of the list and hit down, you'd go back to the top. Or if you were at the top and hit up, you'd go to the bottom. Since this is not checked, if you went to the bottom and hit down, you wouldn't move at all. Invert input is for inverting the axis that you're monitoring. Can click to select is not currently used, but will be in the next version. Navigation mode does this whether it's a button or a key, or you're going to take care of it manually in script. Auto repeat allows us to automatically repeat the key input. So let me close and go into something that has more than one item. And we can see, in this case, we're allowing it to loop, and we're doing a repeat of the input. Selection mode is set to manual for this because we don't want to have anything happen when this is selected. We're just using these key listeners. And now that we've gone through this list, let's go look at a key listener. So trigger by key is something that's available in any of the cogs. It's in the shared directory. And all it does is it monitors whatever key you supply and can pop off events for you, whether it's on key down, or on key up. We also have a trigger by button that does the same thing. So in this case, for this particular one, this key is how we are switching back and forth between your inventory and the container inventory. So now let's look at this category list that we have going on here. So we'll pop up into the header. Sorry, wrong header. There we go. Category navigation. So category list is just another repeater item. We've attached a horizontal layout group to this. You could do a vertical layout group or grid if you wanted to. And under behavior, we have the show all items checked, and that's what's allowing this item to show up right here. If it wasn't checked, you would only see the actual categories. This is being manually put in for you just for this. And we can supply the text for it as well as an icon for it, so that you don't have to stick with a base of all items. You could supply whatever icon, whatever text you wanted. The category prefab tells us how to make each one of these, and the container tells us where to store them. These are, again, both being auto-populated by the transfer menu. The navigation is telling us how to switch between each category. And then we're also binding these. So when we change from one category to the next, we're actually updating the inventory and the container inventory to reload their list based on what the active category selection is. So we're overwriting what the initial category filter was, and we're supplying this new filter of currently all items, or now, only weapons, only bows and arrows, etc. Until we can see the shirt shows up in ammo and armor, and glass and adhesive show up under materials. So another quick, simple addition for you, no coding to set up, just drag and drop the different items. So now let's take a quick look at the prefabs that have been used here. So we'll look at the category one first, since we have it open. And this just uses a category UI, and that just tells us how to map things. So in this particular instance, we supply an icon, we supply a name, text object. We have different colors for whether it's currently selected or not selected for both the text and the icon. We could also use page indicators as well. That's not required, but it is. If we go and look at the stylized adventure inventory, these pips right here are what are telling us the page indicator, and that's the prefab that we've selected right here. And all that is it's just an icon or an image that we change the color on based on whether or not it's currently active. And that is also automatically taken care of. There's no coding required, no setup. The grid is what tells it what page is currently active. So let's dive in now to the let's go into the main inventory for the adventure one. And this one, for the main menu, same navigation items, and in this case we use a prefab. So this isn't automatically there already. It's not in the container. It's something we spawn, and we tell it to spawn it on the main canvas. Again, this uses the inventory menu UI, so this will take care of populating all the children for you. And if we look down here, we can see the item details. And this is something that is populated from either the grid or the list, as long as you supply it here, which we looked at a few minutes ago. And what this does is it will populate whatever details that you set for it. So you can even subscribe to up to 2 of your custom stats. You can do the ammo type, the weight, the value. Condition, you can either put the text or a slider. You could do both. For rarity, you can do it in one of 2 ways. You can repeat an icon for each rarity level, or you can set a rarity color indicator. In the adventure demo, we use the repeater, and in the sci-fi one, we use a color indicator. So if I just go ahead and grab this guy and open my inventory, we'll see he has 4 stars next to him. And if we were to look at our inventory item for the nuclear survivor pants and scroll on down to rarity, we can see that it's a rarity of 4. So, and these two, just the grid or the list, whichever you have, as long as you supply it, the detail panel will automatically populate that for you. You can also have menus, and menus work in a sort of interesting way. So let's look at the menu for this guy real quick. So what we've done is we've added an inventory menu client, and we've told it its item source is the grid, and to use the inventory list area, which is this transform right here, as its container, and to use the calling position, which is why it showed up right over the image that we had selected. And for each category, we can have a different menu. So for armor, we've got one, and for bows and arrows, etc. So let's take a quick look at that prefab. What we've done here is we have a item menu UI, which again will bring over references for you, so you don't need to worry about that. The same auto wrap that we've seen previously. Again, click to select is not currently implemented. You could manually implement it with a event trigger if you wanted to, but otherwise it's handled through normal input. And all that does is it grabs each instance of the menu item menu option that's below it, and we can see that there's a selected, unselected, and submit event for each one of these. And that's how we're showing these indicators. So we show them on selected, we hide them on unselected, and in the case of equip, we just reference back to the main object, tell it to equip whatever it is that we had selected, and then we close the menu. And the same sort of thing for drop and remove panel. And we've also got this trigger right here to give us some information about what is going on with the item that we've selected, so that if it's equipped, we will hide the equip and show the remove, and if it's not equipped, we'll show the equip and hide the remove option. We have quite a few of these sort of UI components. Recipe component UI is used to display information for a recipe component, and it's used in the component list. We have another one for breakdown. We have this count selector, which you can use in crafting. So let's look at how the crafting interface works real quick. So if we open up the cooking menu and go into content and go into recipes, we can see again this is a scroll view that we've added. Now we've added the recipe scroll list. And once again, it's being automatically populated by its parent. Or actually, I'm sorry, recipes don't need to be populated. Those come from the static DB. And it loads on enable. We've set the item prefab. We've set the container or the component prefab. So this is the recipe item, and these are the components. We tell it where to put the components. And then we have this craft count selection. So if we have a use count selection and we're able to craft 5 or more, or whatever item, whatever value we put in here, it'll show up that count selector. And the count selector works on an action, and once cancel count or confirm count are called, it closes itself and returns back. So this is an extendable item that you can use for more things than just crafting. I think it's very useful and is present in many different games. And because of the filtering, you can do the same thing. So you can do only food and drink in this one, or I could have done only armor. Again, the same sort of navigation, the same UI setup that we've seen in other lists and events as well. So that's a quick overview of how to do all of these different items. They're really quick and easy to integrate. We have examples for every one of them between the two demos, and I really hope that you enjoy the asset. If you have any questions or issues, please do feel free to reach out to support. Always happy to help. Thanks again, and have a great day.